go back again, some ideas for the focus toward budget. Now we need to have clear proposals or ideas to make proposals.
Chavind, okay, I can go ahead.
Yeah.
We need a way, right, so that once the budget is fixed in Sri Lanka, right, we all the time hear this budget allocations, like this budget speech and everything what they do in the parliament is totally BS. And for example, say they allocate.
What do you say?
Totally BS, like
bullshit. Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
And what they say basically, right? They say they allocate something for the education, right? And then another parliamentarian comes and asks the treasury, hey, something else, like they ask money for something else which was not allocated in the budget, and then the money that should be spent for the education will be immediately given to him, like on personal basis, like these are going like underhand, we know that. And that is one thing. So there must be a mechanism in this whole thing, that we need to understand if the budget is allocated and if it is spent properly, right? And another thing is this: international donations, contributions, and then projects, for example, how they affect our budget and how they affect our vision, for example, right? For example, say like when Rajapaksa came into power and all these projects, Mattala Airport, Hambantota Harbor, right? What happened to that? Due to that, what happened to our budget? Due to the, like nobody knows what is going to happen to our budget due to those projects in next 2 to 3 years or whatever, right? What China did was basically they gave this money, right, to initiate these projects for the OBOR initiative in a Chinese One Belt One Road initiative. That means like they are creating these canals and the transit ways that all lead to China in contested areas, sometimes like even through Kashmir, right, and creating political chaos as well. And they give these loans to the governments at a very high commercial interest rates to pay back within a short period of time, right? And then the government, okay, when they get this money, they're so excited about it, and then they just go ahead and blindly implement all that, and they don't think about like what happens in the next coming 5-6 years when you have to pay this back, because there's no planning, there's no thinking about like how to generate income from these things, right? Whereas in Canada, for example, I know one project here in Canada, they don't do like that. What they do is basically they identify there are certain oil sands in Canada in certain areas, very, very cold areas, right, where no Canadians want to go. And then they identified that, and then they publish that, okay, we still want to, like develop this area and get the oil. Then a lot of companies come and bid for that, and a Korean company got the contract, right? And they have no problem with that. And so the country's focus should not be disturbed by these foreign loans and the foreign governments, and they come and they give you something and totally get the focus out of it, and then it affects our budget in the next coming 2, 3, 4 years, or maybe even generations, right? The country's entire development will be in the back burner, right?
Yeah. Okay. So that is very clear and very straightforward. Yeah. But as you said, now our focus should be, for example, impact on foreign funding loans and how they are utilized, and also you mentioned about importance of tracking of the budget allocation, whether they are really utilized.
One thing is utilization, and the other thing, when a foreign government comes and give you a money, okay, to do something, then there must be a proper vetting mechanism. If this is useful, and how can we pay this? If this is what we need, otherwise, just say no, thank you.
Okay. Anybody want to say something on that? It's Jasundara. You have to unmute. Okay, now you can go ahead from the beginning.
Yeah. Okay. What I am saying is, adding to what Ernest said, when a big project is being proposed by anybody, whether invited or uninvited, we should not merely look at how financially attractive it is, because we have to look at the overall impact on the country, especially what will happen to the country's economy, finances, even social and various other impacts that could be there with that project. And only if it is really is beneficial, and also whatever the harmful effects are manageable, then only we should accept that project. So there is no such assessment, I think, to our country. And our approach is just do something and expect it to produce results. And it's always, if it is an investment, it is investment. So that is what we are looking at. We do not have the right priorities, and where we do not canvas for the kind of inputs that are required for development of this country according to a strategic plan which we had identified for the country. So
okay,
this is...
Let me just discuss here for both of you. Now the government position has been, it is difficult to get money from European, United States or Western partners, including IMF, where countries like China give it more in a more relaxed manner, because in the European Union had also other conditions like human rights and such other politically charged conditions. So when the government, at least previous government, said the same thing, and maybe to some extent this government is doing the same thing. Free, easy money is coming from China, and also China is not only kind of expanding muscle, not in Sri Lanka. If you look at Africa, Pakistan, all over South Asia. So is it bad to be partner with China and be a partner of one belt, one, I don't know, something, yeah. So is it viable? Do we have options? And now what is the bargaining power we have of not accepting money?
I think you raised this issue about China, but I am not sure whether we have fully understood what are China's plans and how we can maximize the benefit to this country. Because that impact assessment we talked about is not merely to see the harmful effects, but also to look at the potential opportunities that it provides for the country and how to maximize those. And if we had that kind of a smart approach, we can deal with anybody. So it's not the country. And also you are saying that only China is giving us easy money and not other countries. I disagree. The reason is actually there's nothing called a free cup of tea. So nobody is giving us money for nothing. So there has to be some kind of a benefit that goes back to them. So this is where we need to develop certain core strengths which will be valued by the Europeans. And definitely the Europe will come and invest here. All these other political talks will disappear if there is a strategic importance of making an alliance with Sri Lankan industries. And they will come and invest in those industries. I'm sure about that. Okay. Right now we are expecting charity. We are only expecting charity because we think that we are a poor country. I mean, that was our attitude. Yes. And therefore, please, this is our begging bowl, put some money into it. And that is the kind of beggars we look like.
To make it shorter now, can we like kind of summarize or shorten what both kids said? We need to have a proper funneling mechanism or accepting rejection mechanism for our investments.
Yes, we need to identify clearly implementable where we have certain strengths certain core strengths which can further be developed to our advantage and which will give a competitive advantage over our not only the neighboring countries, even the faraway countries, so that we have something to offer to the world. And on that basis, we could invite investment, and also we could look at going into those countries and doing business in other countries, bringing the benefits in. I think that is the main outcome of this discussion. And certainly, like Fairoz and the design person, Lee, with what they contributed. There are a lot of things. We also need to identify the short-term goals and long-term goals. I think Fairoz identified quite a lot of short-term things that should be implemented almost immediately, or it's already late. So such things also has to be done to make this is a better place to live for the people who are there. And also if we expect foreigners to bring investment and do anything here. So in addition to, we should have the long-term plan. Okay, I mean, if we identify possibly the either the design capabilities or software capabilities or communication technologies or whatever, where we can be a strong point, where we can be a strong partner, then I think we should develop those further. And in fact, one of the guys who came to Sri Lanka some time back very clearly said, local IT graduates are as good as everybody else, but we are not producing enough, especially big data. Therefore, the data analytics experts demand is enormous. He said even 80,000 graduates will not be too much. But we have no plans to produce such things because our curriculum updates and the educational policy.
Cut you here, so because it's very clear now what you are saying. Now, Ernest, you want to quickly recap and then continue maybe with Fairoz? Unmute, please. Okay, you can go ahead.
One thing regarding your question about China, like are there potential opportunities? Yes, there are a lot of opportunities, right? Every country knows that. But the problem is their biggest problem, China's biggest problem is their internal domestic consumption is still low, very low. And at the same time, their private sector, like their middle class and upper middle class are going abroad, and all the money like they like middle class, upper middle class are spending here in Canada, for example. Like go to England universities, go to Canadian universities. Where are their kids? Their kids are here, they are studying here, and house prices in these countries are tremendously high, skyrocketing, because Chinese are buying, and they don't want to keep their money in China. That is one thing. So China has tremendous issues, like problems. Don't think like China is fully fully immune to all these challenges. But do we have the opportunities? Certainly we do. How do we have the opportunities? We have to look at it in a private manner, like in private sector businesses. Like for example, I know only one guy called Wen Shengli, who went to China and started a boat manufacturing company, which is running very successful for about like 9 to 10 years. How did he set it up? He initially set up that company in the US, and it is his US operations that's operating in China, right? And that helped him get to the Chinese market. And on top of that, like he married a Chinese girl. That's a different thing, right? And so that kind of like strategic approaches are required if you really need to go to China.
Okay.
That's one thing. But getting these loans just to satisfy Chinese government's initiatives and bringing Chinese people, all the Chinese people, to do like the constructions in Sri Lanka is ridiculous. Our ways are basically the best way for Sri Lanka is basically to go mainly with the other countries like India. Like for example, all these businesses, I wrote an article about that. All the traditional Indian businesses, if you look at, they're very well established in Sri Lanka, employed Sri Lankan people, and registered in the stock market. And there is a way that anybody can be a partner of that business. They did it like that. But since recently, they are also basically going for very lucrative government deals, right? So that's a different thing. But in this budget, we should not get totally distracted by these foreign loans, and they have to be properly vetted. They have to be vetted by the people who know this, what these projects are and how they can be paid back without affecting us.
Okay, thank you very much.
Right now,
yeah. Okay, so we have Dilip joining from Colombo. Do you like to identify yourself quickly? Say hi to everybody.
Hello, sir. Actually, I just joined. I don't have a good idea what you are talking about right now. I had certain ideas. Let the discussion goes on.
Okay.
I will join in the mid, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I am a student. I'm from MBA batch from 2014 to 16. So that's my identity. I'm Dilip Fernando.
Okay.
So please
You
tell
gotta
me your discussion.
Scientist magazine something, huh? You can also talk about that.
Actually, my idea is that this budget should
Your
give
science.
something for the.
What is this? Your connection to Scientist magazine? Yeah.
Well, I am the editor for Sri Lankan Scientist magazine. This is the only science magazine circulated among public right now. And my idea is to populate science in the public sector. Public sector in the sense public people and general people. And the issue is sometimes the industry doesn't know from where you can get the scientific knowledge and the technology. They always resort to foreign scientists. So what I say is we have scientists in Sri Lanka, but nobody knows. So I want to populate those scientists among the industrial community as well. And industrial issues that needs scientific intervention has to be brought to the platform where scientists are also engaging, so that they can understand where their help is needed.
Okay.
So I'm making a platform for scientists and the industry people to join in hand and discuss. So that is what
one of my former student is doing a really good job. So all the best for that. In fact, I see your office when I'm going to my garage. It's along Raja close here from Navinna, right? Navinna, there's a new.
Yeah.
Okay, it's
nearby.
Okay, yeah, I see sometimes. Okay, so
Okay,
Sachuntan, you want to say something?
Not right now.
Okay.
So
yeah,
I will join you.
5 years, you want to say something? Yeah.
Yes. In fact,
just one thing. Now you keep on chatting. There's a chat option. You can type your ideas if you are going to forget it, because it's easy for us to summarize later also. Now Kitsiri is doing some contribution, so other people can also go ahead. Okay. Yes, Cyrus.
So one thing that we were discussing about train our resources and all that, because we need a good standard and we should be industrially capable to do a project outside. Right now, we understand that we don't have such capability. The ICTA agreement, which government was planning to bring in last year, which was one of the reason why they want to do it, so that they can bring in the resources from India. Similar agreement was supposed to be signed with Singapore, but I don't know what happens to those. It looks like the government is afraid of the opposition or the other party who is making the disturbance, so they are just taking a back seat. So government cannot be run like that. They should have a policy to implement, but they believe it's a good. I mean, also one point is that the policymakers are mostly the politicians, which is half of them are not even past O levels. So how come you can expect better policy? So just it has to be. I mean, the policy making should be independent of politicians, so that there are a lot of enough professionals. We can hire the professionals to do that, so that there will be a sustainable policy where we can implement it. We don't need to just be afraid of otherwise there's no point that we talk about this and finally when you go to implement it, nothing will be implemented.
Okay, thank you. I think Kitsiri, Ernest Kitsiri's friends are actually driving the anti-ICTA campaign, so he will have something to say. You want to say something very quickly, Ernest?
Well, right now they understand like it was a blunder that they made, right? And they're not supporting it anymore.
Okay, they're like neutral. But I think what
absolutely, yeah,
said was very interesting, because we have a capacity problem. So this lack of capacity is kind of making us afraid of everybody, from Indians to Chinese to Americans, even to
Yeah.
Bangladeshis, and even Myanmaris. So we always look at outsiders as threats, and we don't see, as you said, the opportunities coming with them. Okay, and yeah, Kitsiri, Vijay Sundara.
Yeah, I think why we are afraid of outsiders is because we are not confident about our own strengths. Actually, probably these people who are really afraid must they know in their hearts that they cannot face competition because they have nothing to fight back. So this is something which we have to change, because we need to tell these professionals, you develop your skills so that even these outsiders will take you and take to their countries and probably pay you better and give you better opportunities. So that's what should happen, because the world is becoming one, irrespective of the geographical boundaries we are trying to establish. And some people are talking about divisions, but actually it's not getting divided, it's getting joined together. Probably what is happening everywhere is now known to everybody. It's like those developments. So we need to understand, even the economies of countries are like that. In fact, if you look at some of my postings recently, I found a very interesting research paper which says productivity and GDP are no longer measures of development of a country, because it doesn't talk anything about the virtual economy built by digital technologies, and it doesn't account for that development. So therefore, we need to understand what is happening in the world, and we need to bring those dimensions into our planning, into our budgeting, into our thinking, and make this country a 21st century modern country. And then we don't have to be afraid of the things like liberalizing trade agreements with either neighboring countries. I think we should not really look at between India and Sri Lanka, but it should be with all the countries. We should liberalize. We should have very liberal, very open kind of an approach to attract the right partners. And that should be both ways, not only this way. So we need to train our people also when they negotiate. They should know their strengths and how to get advantage for their strengths to be sold to outsiders who want to come and do business with them. So that way it will be a stronger relationship, and even the investors will be happy, because it's a give and take, or rather both sides benefit, and it's a true transaction kind of business transaction kind of project. It's not we're not waiting for handouts.
Okay.
And that's what we need to establish.
Okay, thank you very much for the contribution. Puputu, you want to say something? Maybe she's.
Hello?
Yeah, do you want to say something, add something, or continue typing?
Basically, actually, what I have to say is actually from most of you, it was mentioned already that now since I am also in partner with this digital manufacturing technology with Fablanca, so I think one of the ways that we can develop our economy would be through innovation. So when it comes to the field that I am working in as well, like what I think is people's attitude might be a very big issue when it comes to introduce this creativity and thinking out of box way of thinking. So I think we in that way we have to start from the education system, and actually that's a long-term plan, not something that we can do within a very short period of time. So that is also one of the ways that we can like train young minds to contribute economy through their innovations.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, this is also important idea we want to actually include. Now, for example, a lot of people, even now, today we did a 3D printing and 4th Industrial Revolution session to my MBA class. People still think it's mainly for technical people and engineers. However, as Puputu mentioned, now we have to take also, I think Lee mentioned that now this idea of designing, idea of innovation is not just for scientists or engineers or technological guys, but it should be widespread from young age to school, maybe even can be even in a primary school. So one suggestion we want to make is to make allocation for introducing new curriculum on digital fabrication, design thinking, 3D printing, all, for example, how to make face fourth industrial revolution in a proactive manner. So that should be some other way, it should be part of early curriculum in the school. Okay, Dilip, you want to say something now? Okay, unmute. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Yes, so I was just thinking some facts that we should consider when we are budgeting for this year, next year actually. That is, one is for education side. Now we are spending a lot on education. I think you may have heard about this sharing tabs for students and teachers, right? So it's a I don't think it's the right time for tab sharing, but I can't intervene into their policies or the decisions already taken. But what I believe is that this is not the right time for tab sharing for students. It would be better if they could include some for each and every class one of the projectors and a laptop or something for teachers. That would be great, because already I have hands-on experience on this with my wife being a teacher. She has tried this one, and students can remember better than whatever else, because they saw everything in digital framework in a small laptop, and in the exam also they showed a very good result for the things they have seen in the class, not heard in the class. So in the tab thing, I don't.
You are basically saying each classroom should have a projector and maybe a screen to have or internet
Yes.
to have YouTube.
Yes, of course.
Okay. Not
of course. That is one thing. Yeah. That is one thing, and if you consider this concept of sharing in bulk, that is a huge business, right? Out of that, there's a huge business of tab or computers or something. So it will be something like maybe 50,000, 1 lakh, or maybe 1 million or something. Because there are more than 10,000 schools, but operating, I think, less than 5,000. But for each and every class, if you are going to set up, you have to have a better plan of manufacturing them here.
But
if you can't manufacture,
don't they have that now? For example, as a part of this, I didn't follow that, the smart classroom. Now, in addition to tablets, don't the class and the lecturer or the teacher has projector and computer as a part of this?
I didn't see. I didn't see. Okay. Because if you are sharing tabs, then everything should be ready. If it is not ready, with at least the projector, tab is not the priority. Tab should be the last one. Right. It's a waste, and also you have to be careful because you are working with the students, young children, so they can misuse as well. Right. So that's a challenge. So what I wanted to point out is, when you are having a mass scale requirement, you have to focus on local resource development, human resource development in manufacturing side. So for example, earlier we shared about 50,000 bikes, right? So 50,000 bike is a common bike scenario. So what we can do is, in such sort of requirements, we should develop our technical side in the country. For that, we can ask some bike dealers, if you can assemble them in Sri Lanka with at least 30% of the manufacturing cost within Sri Lanka, that would be a great advantage for the country, and they can continue as well. Okay. And sometimes, if you have a good diplomats, right now we don't have good diplomats. If you have a good diplomat in different countries, you can even export these products. But unfortunately, we don't have good diplomats or ambassadors or anybody. They are just enjoying. That's the issue.
You are quickly finished. If you have any additional point, you can just go ahead because we have 10 minutes.
Yeah, there is one more. There is one more. The second one is actually when we are budgeting for the science procurements in the industries, because I am selling some scientific instruments for the country. What I see is the grantee has a limited budget. Out of that, 17% is taken back as the NBTN back. So what we are doing this? So we are giving a grant to the grantee academia, and again we are taking back. I think if you are taking back, at least if you invest the same amount for the local manufacturing or something, that is okay. But what happens is it is not happening. Even in our case, I am selling some wooden stuff from Germany. Why can't we manufacture it here? Because the price is very low compared to manufacturing in Sri Lanka, but the demand is very high. But there are a lot of suppliers. If we can manage this one very well, we can manufacture all of them from single or several companies can be given a target or the chance to manufacture and buy by the the government. So that's good.
Yes, you can also keep on chatting so that we can get the ideas and we can get screenshots and.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Can I say something? Can I say something?
No, wait. You have to wait because Ernest has raised already his hand. So let's him finish.
Okay, Chaminda, thank you. I have different views from Dilip. Okay, on some stuff I agree, on some stuff I don't agree what he said, but that's a different thing, right? And this is about the budget. When you meet these guys, can you ask them to spend some money at least to develop that patent office in Sri Lanka? Some budget allocations to develop the patent office in Sri Lanka. There's no clerk there. There's nobody even to file.
How do you know?
So, because I know one of my friends, right, and he's a computer guy. And he had this algorithm innovated, right? And then he went there to file a paper, and it took about, like he said, about a month and a half to get one lady down to the office to file that paper. And after that, after 6 months, he got a response asking a whole bunch of other questions. So he said, just to complete the filing process, it took about 1.5 years. Okay. It's ridiculous. Right? And then when he asked about it, he said she was complaining, oh, I am the only one here to work and there is nobody, blah, 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 all kinds of, excuses.
Okay.
Right?
Can we move on? You have anything else to say?
No, that's it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay.
Yeah, well, I was trying to say something about what Dilip said. Okay. Actually, what he is pointing out is a very valid point about getting the hardware. But actually, how I look at that project is from a different perspective, because actually we have already talked about Sri Lankan education being archaic and obsolete. So by introducing this so-called modern classroom with tabs and probably electronic display board, which also captures what is being displayed there. For the teacher, I think that's maybe a little expensive at the moment. Like Dilip said, we have to import everything. So irrespective of that expenditure, it actually is a revolutionary change in the education system, which is where we can move towards the 21st century faster, because we have already lost on many areas. Because new teaching methodologies can be introduced with this. Because actually, by giving tabs to the students, their feedback, like when we are participating in Zoom, we can chat, we can present our own presentations, do various things. That way, even they can answer the questions asked by the teachers and do their exercises on their tabs, and that will go back to the teacher. Likewise, it's a very interactive classroom where you can use rather than just teacher reading or telling something and the students listening to it, they also can see probably the videos, probably various other media, and even you can incorporate some of these 3D software that is coming in. So
Remote
that way,
remote class maybe.
Yeah, and also the students should be trained to look for sources by themselves. If they have the internet facility, then they can, while they are discussing some issue in the class.
Less than 4 minutes. Thank you very much. I have to cut down again. You, Fairuz, you want to say something quickly? This is going to be your last opportunity.
So,
okay, Sachintan.
Yeah, I have typed one chat comment there. So yeah, it's like this offering the student loans. We can consider about offering the loans for the higher education.
That is fine. Thank you very much. Ernest Kitsiri, very quickly, you can finish your talk before winding up. We have less than 3 minutes now. 3 minutes.
Yeah, Chaminda, since this, the tab issue came to the discussion, I know, like, because we are building schools here, right? And I know personally, in 2003, 2004, we were having this smart board, just one smart board for each classroom, right? And then now we have gone for the tabs too. And I can see even with my kids, what the teachers say when we build these schools. The teachers say they are more. The students are more interactively joining with the teacher, and sometimes even after school students are communicating with the teacher, because there are certain students who are shy to come up in the classroom and present everything, right? And when they have something that they can directly communicate with the teacher finds it very useful. And the real good talented students, teachers say, like, they could identify them. And I think it's a way to go, and it's I don't know, it's highly recommended here.
Okay, so now we had a lot of ideas, for example, from improving science, loans to students, investing in student education in terms of devices, smart classrooms, and interactive learning methods. Also, we discussed design thinking and stuff like that. Now we will look at what we discussed already again, maybe 2 times, and get some ideas. And I'm planning to submit, in fact, I'll submit 2 proposals, one on about FabLanka and digital fabrication as a proposal to the government. We have been doing this, we actually once presented this to JVP manifesto. They had included it, we send it to ICT, then Viable Development Ministry. Whenever some people ask, we have been submitting proposals on that. So we'll also do this for the budget, and also the ideas you mentioned, we'll try to organize some of them and submit, and I can share a copy later. So we are kind of going to finish now. 2 hours we spend. Still we are facing some technical difficulties because people have still difficulties of connecting. I don't know, maybe they're shy of sharing their ideas on the budget. Some people didn't want to join, but some people really want to join. But you guys have a really good portfolio of ideas. So thank you very much for joining, and we'll be in touch. We are going to have next session via FabLanka on some topic which is related to similar topic, but maybe based on actually now in addition to FabLanka thing, we have been planning for this Vision 2025 review or reflection session. Kitsiri also mentioned that. Ernest, what do you think? Should we do that on the strategy? It's going to be the government's strategy, so we can do a critical evaluation on that.
Yeah, I think we should do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that will be our next general session. So I invite you to also join next one. But most important thing, now today also we are doing kind of trial and errors thing, because we want to organize ourselves and give alternative perspective, even if they don't want to listen to us. We keep on doing that. Thank you very much for joining. This is going to finish. So we will